So, look, I know that you've dropped a video already about Global's vaccine injury series. I think it's a 3-piece thing they released last week. And you were incredulous. I didn't watch the whole thing. And the reason for that is because I wanted to be completely and totally surprised by your reaction about this. But before we get to that, I want to play at least one part of this, and we can come back and talk about it. Yeah?
Okay.
Okay, here we go.
I didn't feel like I was there to work. I felt like I was there to kind of hang out and socialize.
This former employee, whose identity we have agreed to protect for fear of repercussions, says working at the Vaccine Injury Support Program felt like high school.
There was definitely no shortage of phones out, watching YouTube. The slushie machine was cool. Ping pong was definitely a regular thing.
The federal government hired a company called Oxaro to run the program and paid them $50.6 million. Global News spoke with more than a dozen current and former Oxaro employees, whose comments included working there was a joke, with drinking Fridays, inexperienced, underpaid staff who weren't properly trained.
I don't think anyone actually understood the severity or the relevance of the program that was being contracted to the firm.
The Vaccine Injury Support Program, or VISP, was created to provide financial support to people who are seriously and permanently injured by vaccines. People like Ross Whiteman.
They're just doing a piss poor job of supporting the vulnerable.
A former commercial pilot and realtor, Ross was diagnosed with Guillain-Barré syndrome after receiving his COVID vaccine, a rare but recognized side effect. His claim was among the first to be approved by VISP. And yet 4 years later, every day is a fight against his body and the program.
At the moment, I'm probably out about $25,000.
In its policy for VISP, the Public Health Agency of Canada said the injured will have fair and timely support. But Ross Whiteman waited nearly a year and a half while unable to work for a full injury payout, 3 more months for income replacement, and still regularly battles the program for his medical expenses.
It could take a month. It could take 12 months.
Some former workers say there was no sense of urgency.
There was an amount of work you were expected to finish.
Every day.
And you weren't hitting those targets.
No, probably well below.
What was lost in the program were the people.
They were merely names on paper, nothing more than that.
Today, Ross Whiteman is on his 7th case manager. He's lost his health, his savings, and perhaps worst of all, he's lost hope.
We're such a small group of people. I just feel like it's on to the next one.
In a statement, Oxaro said this is a new program, and it aims to provide a process that ensures all cases are treated fairly and with the same care, respect, and due diligence. It says its timelines depend on each case's nature and complexity.
Yeah, okay. So I want to get your take immediately from this.
Okay. All right. Ross Whiteman, but I didn't watch that part. So my story that I did yesterday, I focused on the 2 parts. I'd seen bits of that one. My immediate reaction watching that as the first time I saw it is Ross Whiteman did get some press. So he's a name that a lot of people recognize, that he was vaccine injured and he was one of the ones to get a payout first. Because I remember hearing about him. I don't know if you recall his name, but I recall hearing his name. And he was actually somebody that that the press did some stories on, unbelievably, and I think this was a year ago. So the fact that Carolyn Jarvis chose to feature him, no discredit to him, he should absolutely be featured. Everybody should know his name. He should be a household name. But he did get some press. How about some of the others? And in that story, she said, Ross actually said, we're a small group of people, we're going to get ignored. Well, I can tell you, and I'm pretty sure you know from doing your own show, with the comments you get, do you feel this group is small out there that reaches out to you?
No.
Anytime I do a video, I read each and every single comment on all the different platforms, and this has been going on for years, where people go, this happened to my brother, this happened to my child. Everybody goes and tells you their story. I don't see a small group of people out there. So no discredit to him. And the fantastic thing about this series is that now I've long said nothing happens unless the news tells you it happened. So it didn't happen if the news didn't tell you. So all these people that we say, hey, have you heard that you could get injured from this? People for years have been laughing in our face. And now the news legitimizes it. So for the news to actually do these stories, that is great. So I'm actually stunned that the producers of Global National decided that they would go with this series, and maybe we could talk about pontificate on the reasons why.
I was
But
about to ask you, why do you think they did this all of
yeah,
a sudden?
yeah, that's one thing. So okay, so the fact that they did this is great. This sort of legitimizes it. But the framing of the story is, hey, it's rare. Hey, the mom, the lady who lost her husband in one of the stories is like, I don't want to be the poster child for an anti-vaxxer. Really? If you lost your husband and the father of your children due to this, maybe you should say, you know what? I'm not into this. This was not this is, you guys led me down a path, and this is not the right path. But even in the first video that Carolyn did, she said the husband would have trusted the science. So, we were all on the right path. I don't know the husband's name, sorry. That he would have trusted the science, and I don't want to be the anti-vaxxer. So they frame it like that. They frame it as the way the news always does, is going after the bad guy. So they framed it like, we're going after Oxaro. Look at these incompetent staffers at Oxaro. Aren't they awful? Which that's a legitimate angle of the story. And what everybody is waiting for is one day, is Global going to say, we're sorry, we led you down this path?
Well, that's an interesting take. Who is this Carolyn anyway? Is she one of their big names in global news?
Oddly enough, like as many times as I worked on Global National, I never worked with her in person because she was always out east. And then I did see her in the newsroom one time when she was filling in, and everybody was so happy to see her, but I didn't have a relationship with her. She's a very good-looking redheaded woman, and she had dated one of the cameramen there. And I saw them in the newsroom because they locked eyes and they were looking at one another, and I was like, "Oh, what's going on here?" And then I found out later they dated. No big deal. People date. I'm not saying anything about that. But she's not somebody I know.
Does she have do you think
Mhm.
that she has some pull within Global to make this happen?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's
Because I'm wondering, like, the genesis of a story here, Anita. I mean, like, you worked on the floor for a while. You're a director at Global, for goodness sakes, for Global News, and you know all of this, and you've got a very long tenure with them. You know how a story comes from the seeds of a story to being produced and put on the news every single night. How do you think this happened? Do you think somebody finally just said, all right, we're getting way too many of these. We're going to have to do something?
I think so. I think, okay, so Global National has a producer pod, a producer team. For them to produce the half-hour show, they have like 5 people producing it, and it is a shit show. The 2:30 show that goes out is a total disaster, and I could tell you a bunch of funny stories about that. But we literally, the other producers not laugh at them, but they always say it takes 5 people to produce that half-hour show. They are the true example of too many cooks. But anyway, they do their show, and every day they have story meetings. And if they're going to do a big series like this, obviously they're going to get together in their meetings and talk about how they're going to address this. So perhaps, I'm only guessing, because of all this pushback, ever since this happened, can you imagine the emails that they get, the people calling the station, and how nobody, even when you look at their social media, the anchors, I don't want to talk too much, but like the anchors will just post pictures of them going to restaurants or them going to a variety club thing. It's like, are you going to ever post something about news? I don't care that you went to your son's baseball game. You're an anchor.
It humanizes them, though, Anita. It humanizes them to the audience, don't you think?
Oh, is that why they do it? I guess so. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I do
yeah.
recall, when I was working at Chorus, which is part of Global.
Yeah.
And we would do the story meetings in the morning and before we went, but that was radio. That's different. There was never really, produced features, right? It was just, what are we going to talk about this morning? Here's what we've got. Let's pick and choose. We've got a dozen things. But when it comes to producing, I mean, a television piece
Mhm.
like this, it takes a while, doesn't it? It takes like a
Mm.
good week or two maybe to put together these pieces. You got to get the interview
Mhm.
or interviews. You've got to get the
Mhm.
production done. You've got to figure out how long you want it to be, how many parts you want it to be, what angles you want to cover. It can take a while, right?
It can take a while, and so maybe they were working on it for a little bit, but it can't. It's something. It's not that hard, and we work fast there, or we were an absolute sausage factory. So when somebody decides we want to do it, maybe they just thought we'll do a one part, and then maybe it evolved into more as they started to do more. So what I think somebody, now you're making me think about it, like somebody, they all probably, the producer pod got together and said, I think we need to address something. We're getting so much pushback of maybe injured people, and maybe this was their way of doing it, and maybe somehow they got a lead on this Oxaro thing, and they know that they could hitch their wagon to Oxaro, and in that way they're covering vaccine injury but also absolving themselves of talking about what they did.